Ba-dum, bum, bum, ba-dum. Ba-dum, dun, dun, da-dum. Dun, 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 da-dum, bam, boom, boom. It's on now, folks. Ba-dum, bum, bum, ba-dum. Dun, 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 da-dum. Ba-dum, bum, bum, ba-dum, bum, ba-dum, bum. Hi, I'm Yosef. Once upon a time, I wrote a book about history and implications of marijuana in Judaism and Hasidut. Let me get another mirror for the effect. Nope, that's not how mirrors work. Nope, that's not how perspective works. Nope, you'll have to take my word for it. Or Atana Media's or Alan Moore's or whatever. It's fine. It's okay. It covers a lot of ground. I owe you some of that ground right now. We are going to do the first ever live reading, whereas I think last year I tried to do a live reading just of the table of contents, which is just wonderful. I think today we're going to skip right to the end, which is a very respectable custom. Just skip to the end. Reading each chapter of the book, starting from the last, and we'll see how far we get, because I think that's part of the nature of the thing, right? How much of a life or a day or even an hour can we devote to the things we love, especially fikali, smoking weed? How much time is too much to waste time on something you love or like or appreciate or like have been healed by, right? Only a little, only so much before it becomes a problem. And everyone notices. Nobody wants to do things once they're a problem unless they can't help but not notice. And that's arguably the main thing this book is about, by the way. I had to give anything away, but that's exactly what I'm doing. Giving away the very end. Now, even to start from the end is a big challenge, because do I start from the end notes? The end notes are amazing. I think I will start with the end notes. 420, for some mysterious arcane reason, is the euphemism for time to smoke weed in the marijuana subculture. Many reasons for this have been given, ranging from being the police code for cannabis smoking in progress to being the time that Jerry Garcia died. With a bunch of other cute suggestions in between. None of these explanations tend to sound quite right, and tend to be easily disproven with a minimum of research. A response received anonymously to my first post on the Cannabis Chassidis weblog in 2005. Whenever I used extended italics in this book, it implies that I'm quoting a letter I received when I first went public with my trip. If a person merits, the Torah is a life drug, Sam Chaim. And if not, it is a death drug, Sam Mavis. Yoma 72b. IV. Me Hashiloach an Parshas Kitetse. This thought is developed by other generations of Ishbitz and Radzin scholars, notably the Beis Yaakov and in Tzidkas Tzaddik in their commentaries on the same parsha. V, according to the Sefer HaZohar, or Book of Illumination, VI, HTTP :// McKenna.psychedelic-library.org. VI, Babylonian Talmud, Tanis 20a. I. Babylonian Talmud, Shabbos 150a. IX. On Passover, leavenable wheat, spelt, rye, oat, and barley flour are forbidden for use since biblical times. All right, that's enough. There's a bunch more, just little things. Just little things. Okay, fine. I will read it. One more paragraph, you guys. But then on to the real shit. Because how much time do we really have? Days are busy. Can't waste so much time. It's a holiday. It's like early in the morning where you are. It's like 11:24 over here on Passover. And Pesach Sheni is during ER, right around the full moon of this month. This whole month is sort of a big wheat holiday. The lunar one, the middler Sefirot of the Omer, the little barley count. On Passover, leavenable wheat, spelt, rye, oat, and barley flour are forbidden for use since biblical times. Just to be safe, the sages in Germany, Europe, in like the 11th century or something, forbade every kind of legume that could conceivably be confused for grain, including rice, millet, lentils, buckwheat, chickpeas, and every bean. Orthodox Jews of Ashkenazic ancestry are consequently unable to use even byproducts of any of these legumes, like soybean oil, corn syrup, etc. But potatoes were never forbidden in Europe. Why not? Potato flour and starch totally is not more confusable than rice, corn, or soy. So why permit potato flour? So it was a big controversy for a little while in Europe. But then it was decided you can't criminalize potatoes because then all the poor people would starve. Same thing with alcohol. You can't taboo what keeps people alive in the cold. Not if you want to keep them alive. X. Mishnah Brachot 6. XI. Babylonian Sanhedrin 70. XII. http jewishvirtuallibrary.org. JSource. Judaism. Hasidism. And Mitnagdim. HTML. I don't know, man. The endnotes go on and on. JudaicaPlus.com. Tzadikim. Tizzy Viewer. Page Polynoi. Tizzy Viewer. Orot.com. Eden 3. Kolel.org. Tasty Treats. Mod 6. www.lechaimweekly.org. Lechaim 5752-204 HTML. Freely adapted by Tzvi Meir Cohen, whose English name is Howard M. Cohen, his dead name, pattern attorney, from a story in Shifchei Besht, as translated in Praise of the Baal Shem Tov. Breslev.org, Torah Wisdom 160 through 169 HTML. Blogger.com, lechaimweekly.org. XXI. The Jewish tradition translates Kida as Cassia, which to my mind is strange since something else is called Cassia, a couple of Kitsia, a couple of paragraphs down the page, which is so identified traditionally as Cassia. Could Cassia really have been so popular? I would like to believe that Kida was something more folksy. Bisamim Rosh are defined by the Ramban as being universally popular. So I guess something more like that. Cardamom? XXII. NorthAtlanticBooks.com products. I know what that is. www.curesnotwars.org. Melahuana.html. Check that one out. XXIV. According to Rav Shlomo, giving over Nachman's The Great Fixer on the Soothing Learning Center 1972 bootleg. XXV. Talmud Sota 11b. drugwarfacts.com, marijuana, blogger.com, HBPPPII News. This idea, XXVIII. This idea was introduced to me in the name of Batya Lakshmi Elior in Gershom Winkler's seminal Path to the Boundary Crosser. I think that's about Tuma. Ibid. Baruch, XXX. This is what you waited for. Baruch, the Holy Drunkard. Translated and given over by Rabbi Zev Chaim Thayer, copyright 2003. In the time of the Baal Shem Tov, it happened that a harsh decree threatened the Jews of a certain town. The people came to the Baal Shem Tov to ask that he pray for them. He responded by sending them to another small town, looking for a certain Reburich, for a blessing that would ensure their safety. The townsfolk spent several days looking for this Reburich. Finally, they found a man named Baruch, but he seemed to them to be far from a holy man or a sage. Indeed, brief inquiry revealed that Baruch spent almost all the day, almost every day, in a drunken stupor. La 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 la. La 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 la. The townsfolk, however, with faith in the Baal Shem Tov's instructions, kept him from drinking until he was sober enough to fulfill their request for a blessing, and after which he promptly fell asleep. On returning home and hearing that the decree against their town had been nullified, the townsfolk asked the Baal Shem Tov how a common drunk, as they perceived him, could give such a powerful blessing. Baruch, the Baal Shem Tov responded, once risked his life to save another. In return, God decreed he would be able to bless others. Unfortunately, Baruch abused this privilege in some way. And in order to minimize the chance that it might happen again, God decided to keep him drunk all the time. If, however, someone is seeking a blessing and has the patience to wait for him to sober up, Baruch is still able to provide and bestow that blessing. I don't know if that moral ages very well. Unlike the whiskey. http://newsspot.com. Published Divrei Torah 813631 / Baruch. %20 the %20 holy %20 drunkard.pdf XXXI. And from Shlomo Karlibach. I don't know if you're allowed to say that name. On Purim we get drunk. On Purim we get drunk. According to good manners, you really shouldn't get drunk. But what kind of manners are they? I don't know if this ages very well. I don't know if anything here ages very well. This is, let's see how it goes. It all depends on the level we are drunk. On Purim, we are holy drunkards. Really holy. If on Purim you are not on the holiest level, you really have no right to drink. But, ... on Purim we break down all the good manners of the world. We get real. And if you are real, you can be drunk and still be real. Still be holy. And if you're on the level of evil manners, you can be not drunk and give a speech and say the most obnoxious things in the world. So on Purim, therefore, we break down the level of manners and we are drunk and give a speech. We are obnoxious maybe, but we're just on the highest level. What is the difference between drunk and a holy drunk? A non-holy drunk, if he sees 10 people, sees 100, whatever. If he sees 1,000,000 people, he might say he sees 10 million. A holy drunkard only sees one. Nothing else. Why is it that when you're drunk, you can't stand on your feet right? You can't walk? There is a level that my service of God is standing before God, walking in God's way. Then there's a level, even if I am not walking and even if I can't stand, I'm still serving God in a crazy way that is even deeper. I'm praying we reach the high level that we can't stand, we can't walk, but we are still the greatest servants of God. What happens when you're drunk? You have a strange kind of imagination, right? The holiest faculty God has given us is imagination. Holy imagination. On Purim, we get drunk, and we mamish imagine the holiest things in the world. We imagine that there's no evil in the world. This is the holiest level a drunkard can reach. www.rebshlomo.org Torah Yom Tov Purim 1.txt XXXII Proverbs 9:17 XXXIII Joshua 17 XXXIV. Some will argue that this Shlomo boycott had more to do with rumors of his impropriety with women than with theological conflicts. The proof against this claim, is that all the rabbis and teachers employed by these organizations, who were also reported for much worse improprieties, who were never blacklisted this way. It had to do more with identification of problematic ideas than problematic behavior, if you ask me. Not that the behavior is not problematic. Oh, that's not even written there. I got to put that in the next edition. Not that the behavior was never problematic. XXXV, The Simpleton and the Sophisticate, is one of the 13 stories of Rabbi Nachman transcribed into the original Yiddish by his students after he would tell them, and translated it into Hebrew under his guidance. This translation is from www.breslov.org/sophisticate.htm. XXXVI, Babylonian Talmud, Chagiga 12b. XXXVII, Dvarim, Deuteronomy 5:19. Kol gadol lo yasa. The 10 Commandments are recounted as heard from within the fire and smoke and fog, a big voice, lo yasa, and did not continue. What does that mean, that the voice did not continue? It's elaborated in Dvarim 5:22. Im Yosefi or anachnu לשמוע את קול השם Eloheinu od v'yamutu. And now why should we die? We saw that someone could hear the voice of God and live. Moses reports that people having said, and now why die? Because, or alternately, when or if, we ate the great fire that, if we continue to hear, to understand, the voice of Yud-Keh Vav-Keh, our divinity more, and we would die. That is, the Israelites refused to hear more, though more would have continued to have been revealed. If only they would have listened, it's their prerogative, a forgiving voice would say, their right to only decide when to ask God to stop. Years later, Elijah, the prophet, would return to Mount Sinai, cursing the people who asked to stop, asking for more revelation, where he learns that the voice never did stop. It only became a still, small voice. that whispered rather than bellowed. XXXVIII. Genesis 41:16. XXXIX. The information I got is from the blessed fount of all information, Wikipedia. Oh, it talks about Tammuz for a while. That's out of season. Oh, and it talks about Bar Kamsa. It gets very dark there. Yeah. No. I'm just going through the rest of it. It's great, but George Harrison and Al Aronowitz sharing a joint. This is the one picture in the entire book. Just, that little moment. George Harrison and Al Aronowitz sharing a joint. Photo, courtesy of Al Aronowitz. There they are. My sweet Lord, hallelujah. My sweet Lord, hallelujah. Really want the rest of the table of endnotes here actually foreshadows a lot of the rest of the stuff I do. Tzvil Melech B'Dinag, B'nai Saschar, Astrology, Fred Ben Lenti, Power of Nightmares, Seven Fat Cow, Sefer Bahir. Oh, Sefer Bahir. Okay, fine. Sefer Bahir, 62. LXVIII. Supplementary readings. That's a sensible fair break. Sefer Bahir, 62. They asked him, what is the meaning of the verse with regard to Balak and Bilam? Numbers 23:14. And he took him to the field of seers. What is the field of seers? As it is written, Song of Songs 7:12. Come, my beloved, let us go out to the field. Come, my beloved, let's go out to the field. Sadeh. Do not read Sadeh, the field, but Sida, carriage. What is this carriage? What is this carriage? He said. The heart of the Blessed Holy One. His heart said to the Blessed Holy One, come, my beloved. Let's go out to the carriage to stroll. It will not constantly sit in one place. It has to ride. Sefer Bahir 63. What is his heart? He said, if so, Ben Zoma is outside and you are with him. LXXII. Cannabis is excerpted from the Encyclopedia of Psychoactive Substances, Richard Largeley, Lil Brown and Company. XXIII. www. Cannabis Medicinal History of Cannabis. Goes on. Marijuana History is LXXV by Chris Bennett. This quick reference was found to Lost Civilizations and the Scythians. And here is a complete description of the Scythians. Okay, this is the last story, before mentioning the Israelite origins of the Scythians. Historians offer more than one theory and no definite conclusion as to where the Scythians originated. One idea is that they came from the north into the steppe area. Another cites evidence that they migrated from the borders of China. Since the Scythians apparently left no written records, and the writings by their neighbors about them were sketchy, it is necessary to rely on archaeological evidence to attempt to trace their source. Since the early 18th century, many artifacts worthy of study have been retrieved from a number of widely scattered burial sites. They've been analyzed, and much has been written about them, but the field remains complicated and controversial. This is due in part to the fact that the Scythian areas of occupation in southern Russia, Central Asia, and Siberia were for hundreds of years a boiling pot of a multitude of tribes and sub-tribes, peoples that were ever on the move. At the times, war or drought would push groups westward towards Europe. Then they would migrate back. And later, westward again into Europe. Confederacies were formed and broken, tribal names borrowed, changed, or mutated. into a different form. This fluidity in the nomadic culture made both the written and archaeological record difficult to analyze with certainty. Evidence of one sort of Scythian origin does consistently appear and reappear both in the study of linguistics and in the archaeological and written record. That source is in the present-day area of Luristan in Iran. Anciently, this area was occupied by the nomadic horse-riding people, the Maids, who were later part of the Persian Empire, and with the Sumerians, a people who appear to either have been identical with or closely related to the Scythians. Artifacts from Luristan appear to be strongly Scythian character. Where did the Scythians come from? pages.sssnet.com /7 genex GENEX 7 /where.html LXXVI, the Israelite origin of the Scythians. Stephen M. Collins, XXVIII, from Fighting for Our Lives, an anarchist primer, available absolutely free from the Crime Think Collective at www.crimethink.com. XXIX HTTP the Tyee TYEE.ca /news /2007 /04 /23 /Feldmar / and the very last endnote LXXX Ghazal number 1393, translated by Nader Khalili. I skipped Promethea number 5 and listening for the logos. I skipped an identification of who Gedalia, of who Yaakov Sak is. There's a brief explanation of who Yaakov Sak is. One day you might know. I said something about Nanach and something about Satmar at Lilith's Caves by Howard Schwartz. Rabbi Eliezer of Metz, invoking the demons to do one's will is permitted from the outset. For what difference is there between invoking demons and angels? Red Orbit. But basically, and in the West, a marijuana smoker would use the word Bogart instead of Shlomo because of Humphrey Bogart's cinematic tendency to ramble on while holding a lit cigarette. But no one I know has ever seen any of the movies where he does this thing. I mentioned a Kabbalistic joke about Jacob as the third patriarch, identified with harmonizing the extremes of kindness and restraint. And there's an old Jewish tradition of taking a third shot to avoid only having taken 2 shots of whatever, which would be identified with restraint and judgment. But really also, little gestures like this are a technique to invite curiosity and interest into a community and its slang by throwing in just enough gestures and jokes in that other people's language that one is pushed by understanding most of the context to want to understand that little bit more. And this was the secret of the success of early hip-hop with people outside of the Black community. Once you pursue the learning of the language, then you're pretty much in. This is how words like kosher and tuchus made everyone in New York culturally Jewish, effortlessly. Promethea number 5, America's Best Comics. I like mentioning that a bunch of times. It's really a pretty good book. Really should check it out. I'll have that new edition out pretty soon. Fred Van Lente, Hor. Power of Nightmares. But that very last endnote was a poem that I just threw in. Appendix 3. And then we're going to stop for a little while. I Was Dead by Jalaluddin Rumi. I was dead. I came alive. I was tears. I became laughter. All because of love. When it arrived, my temporal life from then on changed to eternal. Love said to me, you are not crazy enough. You don't fit in this house. I went and became crazy crazy enough to be in chains. Love said, you are not intoxicated enough. You don't fit the group. I went and got high, high enough to overflow with lightness. Love said, you are still too clever, filled with imagination and skepticism. I went and became gullible, and in fright pulled away from it all. Oh, love said, you are a candle, spread, gather, attracting everyone, gathering everyone around you. I am no more a candle spreading light. I gather no more crowds, and like smoke, I am all scattered now. Love said, you are a teacher. You are a head, but for everyone, you are a leader. I am no more. Not a teacher, not a leader, just a servant to your wishes. Love said, you already have your own wings. I will not give you more feathers. And then my heart pulled itself apart and filled to the brim with a new light. Overflowed with fresh life now. Even the heavens are thankful that because of love I have become the giver of light. Do-do-do-do. Be right back.